What's happening, guys? My name is Anthony, and in today's video we're going to be doing episode 3 of my Team Career Mode series. I'm finally back uploading content, and I want to be uploading daily content, so expect to see more My Team videos going into the future. And the first thing that we're going to be looking at are the faculties. I believe in the previous episode some of you guys mentioned the chassis faculty, and since we're already upgrading some of the parts mainly to do with the chassis and the aerodynamics right now anyway, I thought, okay, this would probably be the best time to upgrade the chassis faculty. So that's what we're doing. We end up upgrading the quality control and the build time, which I believe are the two most important parts of those faculties anyway. So yeah, now we're just taking a look at some of the options. I do believe we upgraded some parts to do with the durability, the aerodynamics, and the chassis. I believe we did leave the powertrain to itself just for now, and we're just moving straight on to qualifying because nothing really happened other than, you know, us going through some of the practice programs, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys don't necessarily want to see because it's arguably the same thing over and over again. So moving on to quali now, you can see we're doing our banker lap, and we didn't really get a good turn one. We didn't really hook up the curb enough to really get the car rotated, and you can see that by the amount of understeer that we got. Then moving on to this sort of like castle section here, again, it's just a lot of understeer in the car. It seems as if, you know, our aerodynamics are still not exactly where I want it to be, so we're still going to have to do quite a lot of work on the car in order to get it there. But as we move on towards the end of the lap now, the final corner was actually pretty decent, and we come across the line to do a 1:10 flat, which was a terrible lap. The rest of the lap was just trash, to be honest. But as we move on to the second lap now, this was actually the fastest lap in the session that we managed to do, so I'm gonna keep quiet here and let you guys see a lap of Monaco in the BA001. So as we come up to the final corner now, it's been a pretty decent lap up until the final corner. There's still quite a bit of time in there, but as you can see, the final corner we completely messed up, went super wide and lost about 2/10, I believe, or something like that, and we end up going into, I believe that's P18 with that lap. And then moving on now to the final lap, and the reason why the second lap was the fastest lap that we had, once again, you know, the first turn wasn't necessarily the best. There's still quite a lot of time left in that first turn, and as we come up to the castle section, or whatever this section's called, the exit off of here, we just get it all wrong and we completely lose our front wing, and that is qualifying over because, you know, we've only got 20 seconds of qualifying left. So at this point I just had to dive down the escape road and retire, and this was actually our worst qualifying yet so far in this career mode series. We did get out qualified by our teammate, so not a great qualifying, but hopefully we can do better in the race. So let's move on to the race intro.
Formula One returns to Monte Carlo once again today, home to the world-famous Monte Carlo Casino, first opened in 1863. And, of course, a certain road race, first held here in 1929. There's no greater an occasion, no more valuable a win than the Monaco Grand Prix. The prestigious Circuit de Monaco then. It's not all that dissimilar today to the layout that made its debut almost a century ago. It's 2 miles and 19 corners through the streets of Monte Carlo, and although the average lap speed of around 93 miles per hour is the lowest of the season, the tiny margins for error make it the natural habitat of the safety car. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of turn one, so how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
There are 3 main things to worry about there, Crofty: positioning, awareness, and discipline. First, you have to put your car in a bit of space and make sure you have room to react to what the others are doing. Then you have to watch your mirrors and listen to the sounds around you to get a sense of where everyone is. And finally, just don't get too greedy. Just because a gap exists doesn't always mean you should go for it.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Verstappen, Norris, Lewis Hamilton and Ricciardo, Sainz, Vettel, Stroll and Charles Leclerc, Gasly, Tsunoda, Fernando Alonso and Ocon, Mick Schumacher, Raikkonen, Nikita Mazepin and Robert Schwartzman, Anthony, Russell, Latifi and Antonio Giovinazzi starts from the back of the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
So as we move on to the race now, we've got 5 red lights. And lights out and away we go, and we get a much better start than our teammate as we are starting on the medium compound tyres. For this race we're going to be doing a medium to hard strategy, just simply because that's the best strategy to do at Monaco, because track position is so important. And speaking of track position, we were going 3 wide into Sandoval, so even though our sticker tells us no heroics into Sandoval, we at least tried to look for the move, and it didn't necessarily work out for us at first. As we move through this sort of like castle section or whatever section you call through here, we managed to get the move done on Mazepin because we were on the inside line, and now we want to try and overtake Raikkonen and just squeeze him in through this hairpin. It was going to be difficult because 2 wide going through this hairpin is pretty much impossible with these cars, which we'll get into in a second, but we managed to make the move, and now we're in P16. And as I was saying just now, you know, this track, in my personal opinion, I know it has a lot of history in Formula 1, and I know a lot of people do like this race in Formula 1, but for me personally, especially as a newer fan, it's just not the best, to be honest, especially with how wide the F1 cars are these days. It's really just kind of boring, to be honest, and because of that I kind of want Monaco to be off of the calendar. I mean, maybe you guys can let me know what you think in the comment section down below, but for me personally, it's just not the best race to have with how wide the cars are currently, because there's just no overtaking, there's no opportunities to really overtake, and it can really lead to a boring race both in real life and in the game, unless you're Jarno Otmir, of course, and then you could probably do last the first here on 110%. But getting into the actual race now, you can see nothing really happened up until lap 5, and right now we're about 1.7 seconds behind Alonso, and we're about 4 seconds ahead of Raikkonen. So really we're just in Verstappen land, as I like to call it, or at least Verstappen 2020 land, where basically we're just in between 2 cars and we really weren't doing anything productive in this race. We were just constantly losing time to Alonso whilst we were also constantly gaining time to Raikkonen. I think he did end up picking up damage at some point, whether it was on the first lap or whether it was afterwards. So we're gaining time on the car behind, but we're not gaining time on the car ahead, and it's just really stuck in no man's land at this point. And yeah, I was just hoping for, you know, something to happen so that we can at least gain a few positions. And after 10 laps now, some of the guys who were on the soft tires, I believe, they finally pitted in, so at least we gained some positions on some of those guys. But again, you know, if you look at where Sainz is, if you look at where Alonso is now over 4 seconds ahead of us, and Carlos Sainz on a brand new set of hard tires is now 7 seconds behind us. And though he does make ways towards us because the Ferrari is just generally quicker and because he's on fresher tires, it still took him a while to get to us. And again, we're just in no man's land, not really doing anything up until lap 12, which was when Lewis Hamilton ended up catching us up. He's now on fresh mediums, and obviously he's a Mercedes, going to be a lot quicker than us at this point in the season. So it was just a case of just keeping him, I mean, behind for as long as I can, I guess. You know, at this point, it was really just trying to get anything out of this race. I was hoping for maybe a safety car at any given point as well. That could have spiced things up. You'll see later on whether or not we end up getting that safety car. And yeah, it was just putting in those consistent laps and seeing what we can get out of this race. Verstappen is already ahead of us, and I believe he's in a net P2 or a net P3. I believe that Bottas is leading the race at this point in the race, so he's way up the road in Verstappen. He's 3 seconds ahead of us now, so once Alonso goes into the pits, that's obviously going to release Verstappen, and once Hamilton actually does manage to get past us, that's obviously going to release them, and they can have their fight. I was hoping that, you know, if Hamilton did pass us at any given point, then we could have used him to really try and catch up to Alonso. But you might have noticed that we actually ended up tapping the wall going through, I forgot what that corner is, but the one after the chicane. And even though you can see on the diagram that there's no damage, it doesn't say that we have damage, we actually did pick up damage, which you'll see once we actually get to the hairpin, not the hairpin, once we actually get to the pits. We do end up having to get our wing changed, and that's simply because we had damage. And that's one thing I'm kind of concerned about when it comes to the F1 2021 game. It seems as if when you get really light damage, it doesn't even show on the diagram that you had damage. At least on F1 2020, it showed, you know, at least a little bit of a light green, so that you knew that you had slight wing damage, but it wasn't enough to really affect the car. However, on this Gears game, it seems as if you get a little bit of damage, it doesn't even tell you. So that would explain why we lost quite a lot of time, and we ended up losing quite a lot of positions due to that as well, because we had that longer pit stop. So now we're going to have to try and catch up the cars ahead of us and really try and gain even more positions than what we had before. But moving on now to once everyone else pits on lap 21. You can see now we've got Daniel Ricciardo behind us, we've got a teammate behind us, and we've got Mick Schumacher and Alonso, who are now 11 seconds up of the road, and that means we lost, I believe, 7 seconds due to that pit stop, and trying to make that up was going to be a tall order, especially since we were losing time to Alonso even before we had wing damage. So yeah, it was honestly going to be a tough task, and it proved to be a tough task. We didn't really gain a lot of time on them at all. You can see moving on to lap 23 now, we're now 12 seconds behind Schumacher, and now Daniel Ricciardo has finally caught us up. He's on the fresh mediums. He didn't really have a good start to the race. I believe he did pick up quite a lot of damage and had to pit very early, so not been the best race for him. And now he's battling with us, and we want to keep him behind as much as we can, which luckily it is Monaco, so that's fairly easy to do, especially in these cars. And as we move on to lap 31 now, it's still the same story. Schumacher is now 19 seconds ahead of us, and earlier on in the race I was really hoping for a safety car, because a safety car would have spiced things up. It would have brought me a little bit closer to them, of course, and that meant that we could have potentially made up a few more positions, maybe even scraped in our first points in this My Team Career Mode series. However, there were no safety cars coming out. I don't even believe that anyone retired in this race. I do believe that Carlos Sainz had a bit of trouble, but I don't know if he ended up retiring from the race, so it was fairly frustrating at this point. And you can see that there are blue flags, and that is because I believe Valtteri Bottas, the race leader, is actually behind Daniel Ricciardo, so those blue flags are for him. And obviously at some point coming up into the next couple of laps, he's going to overtake Ricciardo, and then we're going to have to move out of the way as well. So yeah, very frustrating race, very boring race in that regards. We did have a little bit of a battle here with Ricciardo. However, other than that, it was really just us being in no man's land. I might have to turn down the AI a little bit. I have got it on 110% at the moment. However, if we're going to be having races like this, where it's sort of like we're in no man's land, we're not really battling with anyone, then I might have to turn it down just to make things a little bit more exciting, so we're at least battling with some of the guys around us. And I believe Schumacher is now our rival as well, so yeah, you know, you kind of want to be battling around about where Schumacher is, and being 20 seconds behind when we don't really have a car capable of really driving around a track like Monaco, very frustrating. But either way, just have to continue on with it and just try and keep Daniel Ricciardo behind us for the rest of this race, so that we can at least scrape a P15 from that. And as you can see, moving on now to lap 33, Valtteri Bottas did end up catching up to us, and we actually almost ran into him. So pretty sure if we could hear the team radio from other drivers in this game, which would be a pretty cool feature, wouldn't have had the best words for us considering how tight we kind of squeezed him. But either way, he's finally passed us now, and we move on to lap 37, which is when the other two cars on the podium end up overtaking us as well due to the blue flag, which is Sergio Perez, who actually surprised me. He's in P2, and then Max Verstappen as well. We have to let him through during this final lap. I do say final lap because obviously Valtteri Bottas has already passed us, so one thing you may have noticed as well is the fuel mixture. I'm still struggling with fuel mixtures, especially since you're not allowed to change fuel mixtures during the actual race. So it's really difficult for me to judge how much fuel I need to put in the car. And this one we almost screwed up. I believe we put either 0.4 or 0.5 laps of fuel, extra fuel in the car for the entire race. And yeah, we almost screwed up here. We just managed to finish the race with the amount of fuel that we had. So probably in future, I'll probably say that 0.7, maybe 0.8 is probably the way to go around a track like Monaco, and then other tracks, you know, maybe like Monza, where you're probably going to be using a lot more fuel overall. You probably might want to go maybe 0.8, 0.9. I don't really see many people going at least one lap extra depending on the track, just because you can't use rich fuel mix anymore. But either way, coming up to the final couple of corners now, it's not been the best race for us. Valtteri Bottas does end up winning, and we end up finishing over half a second behind our rival Mick Schumacher. So very frustrating race. However, we still did beat our teammate at least, so we're still the quicker car when it comes to the PA Racing team.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
Another nail-biting Monaco Grand Prix. We were on the edge of our seats the whole time, but they've come through to take a stunning victory. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those we witnessed today.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today.
Okay, so Valtteri Bottas ended up winning this race, followed by Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen on the podiums, and then we had Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, Sebastian Vettel, Gasly, Tsunoda, Charles Leclerc and Lance Stroll rounding off the point scores, and then we've got Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Mick Schumacher, and then ourselves. We were actually driver of the day, and then we had Daniel Ricciardo, had a terrible race, Mazepin, Raikkonen, Russell, Schwartzman, our teammate, not having the best of races either, and then we had Giovinazzi, Latifi, and Carlos Sainz, who don't really know if he retired or not. It's kind of hard to say because it says +2 laps instead of DNF. But moving on to the actual standings now, Lewis Hamilton is still leading the championship over Valtteri Bottas, and then we've got Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen behind them. And then we're sitting in P18, I believe. So not necessarily having the best of times, especially considering the constructors as well, because Mick Schumacher and Mazepin had an overall better score than us through this race. It means they have overtaken us even though we're both on 0 points. But hopefully moving forward we can have some better races and really bring some points home in the near future. But yeah, still a long way to go with the car, but hopefully as the season goes on we get better with it and we're able to pick up some more results. Obviously our team goal for this season is to acquire 25 Constructors Championship points, which I do believe we will do as the season goes out and we just get better with the car. But for now it's been a big struggle, and you know, we just got to continue going with it. I am thinking about lowering the AI just so that we can have a little bit more battling going on throughout some of the races. I don't want them to be necessarily too boring, so maybe if you want me to lower it, I can lower it. Just let me know in the comment section what you guys think about that. But that's going to be it for today's My Team episode. If you did enjoy it, make sure to smash that like button, and if you want to catch more My Team episodes from me in the near future, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on post notifications, because it will let you guys know whenever I drop a My Team episode, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.